What's up, everybody? Noble Comics here, and today I'm going to look at the top 5 most overrated characters in Marvel. And when I say overrated, I mean that either they are overhyped in just general public discourse or among fans, or their power level and actual power scaling is overrated, or a mixture of both. It's usually some mixture of both. This is all my opinion, so you may have your own opinions, but this is going to be my top 5 most overrated characters in Marvel. Let's jump into it. Starting with number 5. We have Venom. So Venom is a cool character, right? He's a classic Spider-Man villain, probably one of the better Spider-Man villains out there. His origin is cool, both in comic and like in the real world of how the character came about is pretty interesting. The movies were obviously a hit, and I think this is where the overrating starts, because the movies were a hit in a very niche way, in the same way that DC early on did. And what I mean is, comic book movies have been overrun by Marvel in their style of movie making. And I knew a lot of people personally who they weren't super in on the Marvel train, but they liked DC because DC was dark and gritty. It wasn't like those kid movies, those Marvel movies that are family friendly or whatever. And so they felt cool because they didn't like the popular thing, which was Iron Man. They liked, Batman v Superman instead. And I think that Venom hits a similar nerve. It's not kid-friendly Marvel. Venom will bite somebody's head off. He's cool and he's badass, and Tom Hardy's badass. All that stuff. So I feel like he hit a niche there, and that has propelled him some. But it's not just that, right? Not just him being like quote-unquote a cool character compared to most other ones on the big screen. He's also had pretty popular video game adaptations. I'm thinking Spider-Man 2, right? Was obviously huge. Venom was awesome in that game. And even in the comics lately, like the Donny Cates Venom run that went on forever, that was pretty acclaimed. I didn't care for it, but a lot of people liked it. And it really put a spotlight on the character in the comics and made him super popular as well. Because before Donny Cates got a hold of him, people knew who Venom was. It was a classic Spider-Man villain, a classic Spider-Man storyline. But Donny Cates, I think, really took the character, made him his own character, made him more complicated, and eventually worked like throughout the entire symbiote lore and structure and made him God, King, Venom, and all that stuff, which is cool, I guess, but I think sort of, it's no longer the same character though. In my opinion, Venom works best as just a Spider-Man villain than this God, symbiote, complicated character he has become. In my mind, Venom is really like a B tier character, maybe a C tier character, that's been brought up to the S level just because he's got cool factor, I guess, and he really does have cool factor. I can't rob him of that. But I think just in general discourse, he's a bit overrated from where he should actually be. Number 4, we're going to talk about Iron Man. And when I say Iron Man, we could be talking about any of the MCU characters in general, but we're going to focus on Iron Man specifically because this is the biggest overrated character to come from the MCU. He's only on this list because of the MCU and Robert Downey Jr., just to be clear, because before the movies, Iron Man was not that popular. He was a staple Marvel character, everybody knew who he was, but he wasn't like most people's favorite superhero like he is today. And to be fair, Marvel did boost the popularity of a lot of characters like Captain America, Thor, Iron Man to the general public, right? And so now all of those characters are probably overrated to a degree, but none more, I should say, than Iron Man. Because again, not popular before, now he's maybe the most popular superhero in the public's mind, maybe other than Spider-Man. And even in the comics, right? His comics never really sold extremely well. There's a lot of times when he didn't even have his own solo series going on because he worked best as a side character. And now we see his comic character changing more over the past decade, right? To become more like RDJ. They're definitely making him more powerful. They're having him compete with Carol Danvers, and he's getting new suits that are more powerful than the last one. And it seems like they don't really know what to do with him because they'll kill him off or put him in a coma, but they also want him to be involved because he's the most popular hero. And I don't know, there seems like they don't know what to really do with him. And I feel like if you take away the hype of the movies, you're left with just a very kind of boring character where there's not a lot going on. He's not really that crazy powerful. He's really not that crazy cool or unique in any way. It's just the MCU has made him that popular. Which you can't really say the same for Thor, Captain America. Those characters are cool on their own. But Iron Man, not so much. Moving on to number 3, we have Wolverine. And it's tough for me to put Wolverine here because I love Wolverine. I think he's probably one of my favorite superhero characters ever, probably top 3. I think he's pretty much a perfect superhero or comic book character also. But I think he is definitely overrated in both community opinion and in power level. So just from the comics to start out. In the comics, what has Wolverine done in the past few years? It really has not been much. I think he's actually in the comics lately been pretty disrespected and downplayed, I would say. Like pre-Secret Wars, he was doing some stuff. After Secret Wars, we had a cool Old Man Logan series that was very awesome that I liked a lot. But his character hasn't really done a lot and hasn't really been treated appropriately for some time in the comics. But that doesn't really seem to affect his general popularity and power scaling, though, because he's obviously one of the most popular characters out there. The movies have helped a lot. Hugh Jackman obviously has played a huge role in that. He's a cool, badass, irreverent character, and that obviously makes him popular also. But it's not just the popularity, right? It's his powers too, because he's got essentially perfect offense with his unbreakable claws that can cut through anything, and perfect defense when it comes to his healing factor. But that doesn't mean that he is like an unbeatable character, which a lot of people do go in that direction when you talk about power scale. So he is powerful, but he is like a street plus level character who is able to tangle with some powerful characters like the Hulk temporarily. He's never going to beat the Hulk, but he can certainly try, and he can hang in there with him while he's getting crushed, because Hulk's not going to be able to kill him, and Wolverine will be able to inflict damage with his claws. But it's not like it's a real fight between these two, like Thor versus the Hulk. But like healing factors when it comes to power scaling is always difficult. It's always going to cause a problem of the scale of damage someone can take, or like the win condition for beating a character like that. It's always going to make things a little bit more complicated. Add in the adamantium claws, add in the cool factor, and we've got a character who is like destined to be a little bit overrated. Moving on to number 2, the second most overrated character in Marvel Comics. This is going to be Gwen Stacy. And this may be a controversial pick. Maybe there's other characters that you think should take this spot over her. But I have seen way too much Gwen Stacy in my life over the past few years. Way too much. This is like 10 lifetimes of Gwen Stacy. And I'm specifically thinking of Spider-Gwen, but it could be Gwenpool also. The variations of Gwen Stacy, I do not care about at all. To me, she's essentially the Harley Quinn of Marvel. She's this popular girl who's a side character that now just shows up everywhere. I don't get why she's popular. I do not get why people like her so much, why she's shoved into all these different situations, and people enjoy it. I don't get it, because she's like a worse Spider-Man knockoff, Spider-Man ripoff. Why is she popular there as like Spider-Gwen? Is it because she's a girl? Is it because there's a lot of people who like in their head canon think that she's a transgender when she's not? Like, I feel like it's a Tumblr fan base that has decided that Gwen is now going to be popular. And again, it's the Gwenpool stuff is one thing, but specifically the Spider-Gwen is what I'm thinking of. And it's like, why is she popular? Why is that special? Why is she more interesting than Spider-Man is? You know, why are people flocking to Gwen Stacy? I mean, to me, she's just a boring, nothing character who is a worse version of Spider-Man that offers nothing, and yet now is like one of the most popular characters in Marvel. And I think that's undisputed. I mean, she got like a Fortnite skin sooner than the Fantastic Four and much of the X-Men. Like, what's up with that? Why is she so popular? Why is she now iconic? I don't get it. Whatever it is, it's definitely overrated. She should be like a D-tier character no one remembers, but now she's shoved in our faces. And before we get to number 1, we do of course have some honorable mentions. First one being Silver Surfer. I think he's generally just a little bit overrated in terms of power scaling. I think he's typically scaled above, like Hulk, above Thor, above those characters. And that's probably reasonable, but his other powers are usually cited, like being able to manipulate matter and stuff, which he doesn't normally do in a combat sense. Also, Doctor Strange, I think, is a little overrated also. He is extremely powerful. He's not as powerful as he once was. But magic in Marvel and comics in general is just sort of nebulous and sort of all-powerful. So I get it. Then also, Thanos maybe is a little overrated. Definitely the movies have pushed him up in popularity. But his power level in the comics, I think, has been maybe a little higher than it should be. He should be extremely powerful, but he's taking on the Phoenix Force solo. He's killing Galactus in some of those storylines. I think he's pushed a little bit too far, though I know that could be blasphemous to say. Moving on from that, the number 1, the single most. You could be wondering, what could possibly top that? Well, here it is. The number 1 most overrated character in Marvel Comics is Deadpool. Without a doubt, Deadpool. The most overrated, by far, not even close, Deadpool. I hate this character now. I hate people who are fans of this character now. It annoys me to no end. And this is both general public opinion of the character and power scaling of the character to an extreme degree. Now, if you ask me, this is all because of the movies. We all know that. It's all because of the movies. Because whenever in 2016, when Deadpool came out, it's similar to the Venom thing, where this was a character who was different than the normal family-friendly stuff. Deadpool says, fuck. Deadpool will like grab his balls, and that's, he's funny. And, oh, Ryan Reynolds is so funny. And that type of character, I don't know why it cropped up, but it obviously hit a nerve with people, and people loved it. And look, Deadpool has been popular in the comics, I know. Deadpool is definitely not like a no-name, unpopular character, but it's nothing like he is now. And it's one of those things where I feel like it's like baby's first comic character, where they're introduced to this. And when I say that, I mean, like, obviously people were introduced to Iron Man and Captain America and stuff in the MCU before Deadpool. But we knew these characters before Deadpool. We've seen them in animated movies or different stuff like that. So we were familiar with them. A lot of people, I think, were not familiar with Deadpool. And so it's like their first comic character exposure. So they think it's the greatest thing ever. Kind of like people who read Harry Potter. It's like the first book they ever read and the only book they ever read. So they think it's like the best series ever. I think it's a similar thing here with Deadpool. When in reality, again, he's like a B-tier character who's just kind of annoying. I mean, he can be humorous at times, but I think the movie was more like annoying than funny. I really didn't think it was that funny, especially on like a rewatch, because like watch it the first time when I'm 16, sure, it was funny. Try watching that movie again. It's not as funny as you remember. And then also, we run into the same problem we had with Wolverine, where people think that Deadpool can beat anybody because he has a healing factor and can't die. So they'll say like Deadpool beats the Hulk, Deadpool beats Thor, Deadpool beats anybody because he can't die. It's like, again, baby's first comic. They know nothing about comic characters, nothing about how power scaling or powers in general work in comics. They don't get that you can beat somebody without killing them, which again is kind of like a big part of comic books and superheroes, is being able to defeat someone without killing them. But these Deadpool people will try and like educate you on Deadpool about how cool and funny he is, and it's so tedious. And again, I get it, he's edgy and he's funny, but these people who like Deadpool, I guarantee they don't read Deadpool comics. They've just seen the movies, which is annoying enough, but the character itself in the movies too, again, is pretty cringe. I think he's kind of cringe, he's kind of annoying, he's not nearly as powerful as people think. He's like a B or C tier character that has been brought up to the A tier for some reason, because he is different. I'll give him that, he is different than most characters out there. But really, I think he just perfectly hit, and maybe was one of the first of these like comics or kid shows or something, but for adults, that market, which was like The Boys, Invincible, even like Rick and Morty to a degree, of like, it looks like a kid's property, but it has swearing and violence in it. And people like that, so people will like what they like, I guess. But Deadpool definitely #1 most overrated character in Marvel from like every direction. So what did you guys think of that list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what is your top 5 or just your #1 most overrated character in Marvel in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.